150 A Berry Lane, Williamsburg, Michigan. I provided the Planning Commission totally wrong information last time I was here, and that was in regard to the definition of a forb. A forb is a herbaceous plant that is not a grass or grass-like plant, which means sedges and rushes, and it's a herbaceous plant that does not develop a woody stem and so dies back to the ground after one growing season. It may be annual or perennial. So I wanted to clarify that definition. I thought it was a grassy type plant last time. So I apologize for giving you bad information.
We won't hold it against you. Thank you for the clarification.
The other thing is, was it Redwood apartment complex? I saw that they're not on the agenda again for this time. And I'm a little concerned. It sounds like a high quality development. I'd love to see them be here. But I also would love to see that we still allot some kind of affordable housing in some area of the VGT or whatever it's called now, Village of Bancheros. He was talking, I think, about maybe $1,100 or $1,300 to $1,500.
I think it's $1,300.
$1,300.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what's called affordable housing if you're working at Myers or one of the other stores. I think if we're going to talk about a town center, we need to have housing in this development that people could walk to or ride their bikes to. So I'd still like to see the Planning Commission make sure that they allocate some area of BGT to affordable housing for those people.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oops. Anybody else? Mr. Kelly.
Good evening, Brian Kelly, Ridgecrest Road. I was at Acme Creek today. I've been out there for the past 5 days. I wish I could say I was there to enjoy the creek, but I was actually looking at clay water running into the creek from the VGT site. You may know that Acme Creek discharges into our Bayside Park and that we've spent approximately $10 million investing in building out our parks there and our beaches. And one concern about that clay is that it impacts the hard sandy bottoms of the lake bed there. In September, you may have heard the news about the major rain events we had, which described at our board meeting as a 100-year rain event. And those were actually 10-year and 1-year rain events. I don't think we really had enough inspections on that site. Our township has a stormwater control ordinance, 75 pages long. It was passed in 2007. And I don't believe as a township we are enforcing that ordinance. Our county is also not particularly enforcing their county stormwater and erosion control ordinance on the site. I think as PC members, you have projects come up, and almost every project you have here has erosion control and stormwater components. And when you approve these projects with those components, you need to feel assured that the laws and the framework and the regulations and the inspections will happen and they will be implemented as planned. And when those laws are not enforced, I think it sort of undermines the whole planning process and the whole implementation and everything it is you try and do here. It also sets a precedent for future development, future projects, that if you don't enforce in this case, how can you ever enforce in another case? Invariably, any other situation or project will be a smaller project. If you don't enforce this, how can you enforce in the future? I don't think it sets a good precedent. There have been a number of reasons why we've been told this happened. One was the court decree. The other was because the entire site was opened up at once, and that was mandated by the court decree. I don't agree with that view at all. There were obligations here to control the erosion on this site and the discharge on this site. There were ways to do it. This township board has bent over backwards, passing minor amendment after minor amendment to accommodate this development. And if there were any concerns about erosion or sequencing or opening up the entire site, that could have been accommodated. What we saw out there in the summer was the result in part of a May 12th Planning Commission decision to allow the VGT to shift focus from infrastructure development on the site to building the store. This PC approved them to shift focus to build the store. And it's a bit like a kid who has chores to do but has a shiny new toy. You let them play with that new toy before they got the chores done, they're not going to do the chores. Nobody wants to build infrastructure when they can build a new store. It's not the PC's fault, but there should have been the enforcement and inspection component there to go along with that. You had no idea that when you approved that amendment, that they might shift focus like I think they did. So in the future, I think I would encourage the planning commission to write a letter to the board and ask them where the township stands on stormwater and erosion control enforcement. Are they going to enforce it? Should they just repeal it? Are they going to hire a third-party agent to enforce that law? A lot of small townships hire somebody who has expertise to enforce their stormwater ordinance. But I can tell you, when you walk along Acme Creek and see clay draining into the creek, you don't need a PhD to see that. It's no different than looking at a cup of coffee and seeing the difference between black coffee and coffee with milk or cream in it. It's pretty obvious. Thank you.
Yes.
I'll come up there too. Yes. Rochelle Babcock from Acme, and I guess a lot of the things that are happening here in Acme have been awesome. We're going to be seeing Sailor Park here bring in their boat launch within the next couple of years. But I wish tonight I had something more positive besides the boat launch to bring to the Planning Commission. Right now, I feel strongly that this stormwater issue occurring at the development of the VGT Meyer property is a devastating environmental disaster for Acme. Clay discharge was documented just last week on the 6th, the 8th, and the 9th of November. The township has been notified again. What we are witnessing coming off from the VGT development property and the subsequent lack of township response to the soil discharge into the Acme Creek and on into the bay is irresponsible, both on the part of the township governing body and the developers. I do realize that the state is acting on federal environment impact standards, and they're watching the development closely. And though they are listing violations, we may never see any penalties for these violations. It could all fizzle out and no one will be penalized for this mess. The citizens of Acme Township deserve more than just lip service on the part of their governing body. There has been a wait-and-see attitude from the head of our government bodies since it all began back in July. Many in the area are outraged. Township inaction is unacceptable. For this reason, I urge the Planning Commission to take up the business of drafting a new stormwater soil erosion management ordinance. And I know it's usually coming down from the board, but I'm asking you guys to add some clout to it maybe. Get it on the docket. Jay did not think Jay didn't even think we had an ordinance when it was first brought to his attention. I'd like to see an ordinance that will take the wait-and-see ability out and write in stronger enforcement language, one with teeth this time. And I know that there's one out there right now from the watershed, and they were looking at some penalties, not penalties, but actually guarantees with a cash, or some way of charging a percentage of whatever the development costs, whether it's 10%, 5%. I say we go strong and say 20%, and that if there's any violations, it goes to the township. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anyone?
Yes, I'd like to just add something.
Okay.
Okay, because I just think it's appropriate based on the comments that have been made. Every inspection report that is done either by Dr. Grobel or by Gosling Zubek, both are consultants for the township, are immediately posted on the acmefuture.org website, which is also referenced in the township's website homepage. To date, we have 14 on-site inspection reports that the township has completed on the property in October and November, and I just received this evening a inspection report from Dr. Grobel, which was dated today, so that'll be posted first thing tomorrow morning. There have been violations that have been cited on the project, one by DEQ and one by the county. The township's responsibility is to, we report the inspections. They are given to all of the appropriate authorities. The stormwater and the soil erosion are managed by DEQ and by the county, not by the township, as part of the permitting process. So for someone to say that the township is not responsive is incorrect. The township has been responsive. The township does not have the authority to go out there and cite violations. They have to rely on the county and the Department of Environmental Quality, which have been part of this process. The developer is also brought in, and it was in my report to the township board, they've also brought in Horizon Environmental out of Grand Rapids, who specializes in stormwater management. And they've done a remediation plan in addition to what's been done out there. If anybody's looked at the site in the last couple of days, they'll notice that they brought in a mobile treatment unit to filter the water before it gets discharged. According to Dr. Grobel's last report that will be posted tomorrow, he noted that the discharge both on the 7th, 8th, and 9th were running into the wetlands clear and free of sedimentation. And there is a meeting that will be scheduled in the next several weeks with all of the environmental authorities, plus the consultants, to work through the final stormwater, long-term stormwater management plan. So I want to assure the Planning Commission that the township has done everything within its purview correctly in terms of trying to manage this within the process that we can. I will say that the developer has taken every effort and has been responsive to every suggestion and recommendation that has been given to him by DEQ, by the county, and by our environmental consultant to make the corrections out in the field. So this is a project that's in process. Now I will say, and I mentioned this at the this is really reference to Mr. Kelly's comment, is that there are 2 special use permits that are part of this project. The first one was in 2004, and the second one was in 2011. The 2004 was for the overall conceptual plan, and that was the one that was subject to litigation, okay, by the concerned citizens of Acme Township, the township itself, and the developer. The reason why the comment was made that the entire site was going to be opened up was because in that conceptual plan and in that SUP, it said that all of the internal infrastructure had to be installed at one time. So that's why the road's being built, that's why the water lines are being put in, and that's why the sanitary sewer is being put in at one time. Is this normal? No, it's not normal. Typically on a phased development, all you would have seen out there was the 22 acres associated with the Myers project. But because this thing was, and I'm not saying that the judge said it had to be opened up. What happened was, because this was subject to litigation, no party wanted to reopen it for further consideration. When we asked the developer in 2009 to take a look at phasing, they said, we don't want to go into that because we don't want to open the SUP up. We don't want to be back in court again. We don't want to go through 5 years of public hearings. So this contentious atmosphere here in the township has led to the resulting project that we have. Okay, we're trying to get away from that. We're trying to be proactive with the developer. The developer has been at every meeting that we've requested them to be at, as well as the other environmental consultants. So, to make a long story short, the township is on top of this project as much as it can be based on the various state and county statutes. We don't have the authority to go in and start citing violations under the stormwater because that is mandated under permit by DEQ. The county is the enforcement officer on the soil erosion, and they've been out on site and they have noticed, they have written a violation. So I just want to make sure that we understand what the township's responsibilities are. And the township has had 2 different inspectors out on that property every week. An engineering firm doing the inspection and Dr. Grobel. And they both take a look at different aspects of the project and they report it. And as soon as they report it, we post it so the community knows what's going on. So I just wanted to make that part of the public record, Madam Chair.
I stopped taking notes.
Okay. It's on tape. And it'll be on YouTube.
Smile for the camera. Okay, and then one comment that I was really quick with the shifting focus comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, the people who are building the actual Meyer store is Rockford Construction, and the people who are doing the infrastructure is Elmer's. So the idea of it shifting focus from one shiny object to another, and that's the reason that we're having this problem, I don't know that I would agree that that's factual. Am I right in saying that?
No, you're correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to speak to that. Rockford Construction is building the
Can
Meyer
you state
store.
your name and address for the record, please?
Steve Smith, I'm with VGT. That is absolutely nonsense. Rockford Construction builds every Meyer store. We didn't shift anything. And we did have to open up all that dirt.
Thank you. All right, anything else for public comment? Okay, hearing none, public comment is closed at 7:21. At this time, we have an agenda it was offered for people to take a look at. Does anybody have any comment on the agenda, or I would entertain a motion for an approval of the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion, please.
Support.
Right. Is there any discussion over the agenda? Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approval of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Now with the agenda set, does anybody have any conflicts of interest that they would like to disclose at this time? I'm sorry. No. Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar, Marcy.
The purpose is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together for one board motion without discussion. A request to remove any item for discussion later in the agenda from any member of the board, staff, or public shall be granted. A, receive and file draft unapproved minutes of the Township Board meeting 10/7/14 and special meeting 10/2/14 and 10/15/14. Park and Rec Advisory draft minutes from 10/25/14. Planning and Zoning Appeals from 10/9/14, Planning and Zoning Administrative Report, and then we have actions of draft unapproved minutes of Planning Commission 10/13/14.
Are there any items that anyone from the public, the commission, or staff would like to have removed from the consent calendar? Okay, hearing none, at this time I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Very good, Timmons. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the consent calendar as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. We do have some correspondence that I'll read into the record quickly. This is from Chris Darliston, a concerned resident at 5201 Arrowhead Circle in Williamsburg, referencing the Lautner Road roundabout development. We've recently heard rumors of proposed roundabout development at the junctions of M72 and Lautner and I-31 and M72. My wife and I are local residents and came to this country originally from the UK, where we have some experience in this type of road construction. We're therefore deeply concerned about this type of construction to allow access to the new Meyer store being built adjacent to the M72. It is our opinion that this will impede the traffic flow along M72 for the following reasons. 1. On similar roads in the UK, traffic is generally backed up while motorists negotiate the island, since cars on the island have the right-of-way. In rush hour periods, for instance, backups can be as much as 1 mile. Imagine the frustration, since Acme is a pass-through village for travelers on their way to Traverse City, etc. We recall the backups traveling north towards the M72 from TC, just for turning right onto M72. The construction of the filter lane solved that problem. 3, because Traverse City is a tourist destination, people typically come here from out of state and out of area, and will have little knowledge of this type of traffic flow configuration on a main road. This will inevitably lead to confusion and a potential for an increase in accidents. 4, speed will be a factor in non-rush hour periods since traffic is typically moving at speeds of around 60 miles per hour. This may also increase the chance of accidents. It would seem to us that filter lanes would be the better option, although it may be too late to change mindsets. In any event, we are pleased to take this opportunity of voicing our concerns and wanted you to be aware of them, and sincerely hope that they are not justified. Finally, we are not sure whether you are the correct person to address this to, so if not, perhaps you could pass this on to whoever is. I don't know if Mr. Darlston's in the audience. I'm the right person to send this to. And thank you for your comments.
Just as a response to that, the roundabouts are dictated by MDOT, not the township.
Correct, and I also believe the increase of accidents is a trade-off because of the number of fatalities. And it's also not factual that cars will be moving at 60 miles per hour going into the roundabout. So there's some misinformation there. All right, moving on. We have no public hearings tonight, so we're gonna get kicked off with the advanced auto site plan review presentation, right? We're calling this because it's not a complete application at this time. Is that correct? I'm sorry for talking. Been on a plane all day. Who's starting? Are you?
I can.
Who wants to go?
I can.
Raise your hand.
I can review it, and then Bill can.
Or do you have like a presentation, Bill? Or do you-
If John wants to start, then I can fill in.
I'll start, and then Bill can,
Take off after
I
that.
can take off after that. Thank you very much for that. We, Anderson Crane submitted last week the site plan for the advanced auto, which is, if you look at my the staff analysis that we prepared, it's the parcel that's just to the east on 72, which is the former medical office building, okay? And the plans are to demolish that building and to build a new advanced auto. The property is located, it's Zone C commercial, it's located in the new US 31 M72 business district, and therefore it needs to comply with the new requirements, which, as I referenced in my preliminary site review, it did a pretty good job of doing it. They oriented the building, so part of the building is on the front. They're going to have the main entrance on the side, which is allowed by the new ordinance. There's a few things that are that we pointed out that needed to be corrected, and I think I received a submittal about 4:30 today from Bill, where they pretty much complied with all these, but I'll just point them out to the Planning Commission to let you know where I was going with some of the review comments. A is the parking should be located behind the build to line. This is the build to line of the building. Parking needs to be at least 5 feet behind that. I think he's going to tell you that he's made that correction. We recommended extending the sidewalk to the walkway in the front of the building. There's currently a sidewalk that stops here. We recommended connecting the sidewalk, putting another sidewalk to continue the sidewalks as we move down 72. The front facade is approximately 1,404 square feet. They meet all of the sign requirements. It's in the sign code in terms of the size of the signage. The freestanding sign that's identified on the project is 10 feet high. Under the new code, it can only be 6. I think they've made that modification. I haven't seen the revisions. Nikki said that they have it here. Parking lot lights, we're at 27.5 feet. However, the building is only 20 feet high, so I recommended that the height of the lights be no higher than the building, because there are residential properties around here, and I don't want the lights up higher, so I think they've agreed to do that as well. The new ordinance requires that for, you have one bike stall for every 10 parking spaces, so they need to have 3 bike loops. Nikki said that in the submittal, they've done that as well. I just recommended on the front of the building here, which is on 72, not to have any wall pack lights. It's kind of, wall packs on the front of the building are not necessarily appropriate lighting. And then some of the other site issues. I know that they've been working on it. There was an issue at the time I did the site review. They had to get a permit for an additional well, for a new well. And they had to get this thing reviewed and have to go through an appeal process with Metro Fire because there's no public water for the fire suppression system. They have to go through the same process that Goodwill did when they came in and remodeled and built a new building. They had to go through an appeal process with Metro, and Nikki tells me that's a two-week appeal process. They'll probably have that appeal, should be heard, and a decision will be made by your next planning commission meeting in December. And I'll let Bill just kind of go over what all the modifications. We did have, I don't know if Bill has time to respond to it, we did get a storm review letter from Bob from Goslin Zubek, who looked at the stormwater. It is requiring a couple additional elevations. They pretty much designed the stormwater based on the current stormwater ordinance. He doesn't see any significant problems with it, but he's requiring a few more elevations. The new ordinance, the US 31 M72 Business District, does require, and we have to figure out how to do it, including into the stormwater, some low impact development stormwater technologies, either rain gardens or some other technologies. So we've got to, we're going to have to address that.
Jim wants you to call them bioswales.
Bioswales.
He doesn't agree with rain gardens.
Bioswales. So that's kind of where we're at with the preliminary review. I'll let Bill can tell you where he's at now.
Hello, I am Bill Crane with Anderson and Crane, here to present the plan for the Advanced Auto Parts. Following up on John's comments, the site is located at the current Acme Medical and Business Center, about 2 parcels down from this location. The address is 3939 West M72. As John stated, we did review or obtained a copy of the Beckett and Rader review and have made all the changes that John has requested. And actually tonight in front of you there was a revised site plan that was given to you along with the updated signage.
Is it the big stuff?
It's actually the 11 by 17 on 2-sided. One side is the site plan, yep, that one right there on top, and then one is the landscaping plan. I spoke with Nikki this afternoon, and she thought it'd be a good idea to present just 11 by 17. I will go through the modifications from the original submitted plan to the current plan that you have in front of you. As John stated, item number 1 was the location of the on-site parking. Per the code, the on-site parking needs to be shifted back at least 5 feet from the front building line of the structure. The current plan showed it about 4 foot in front. What we've done is we've actually eliminated one parking stall, which is the one on the old plans labeled number 10, and it's located on the map that John put up as item labeled A. So currently we have 23 spaces instead of 24, which allows the parking space to be a minimum of 5 foot away from that building facade to cover that issue there. The next one is the sidewalk. We actually have added a sidewalk along M72. It's shown on the first plan going east from the existing, there we go, we can do it that way.
So what parcel is to the east of this?
To the east
Is
of
it
it?
the one that has the Ursula?
Yes, it is.
Great guns.
Great guns.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Item 2 is the sidewalk along M72. We'll continue the proposed sidewalk along the M72 right-of-way to our east property line. The third item is the sidewalk from the Advanced Auto Parts to the M72 sidewalk. In eliminating that last parking stall, it allowed us to install a sidewalk that runs along the south line of the parking area, along the east side of the drive line, and connecting to the M72 proposed sidewalk on the site. The next one is the freestanding sign issue. Originally it was at 10 foot, and in the sign package that you have in front of you, the red sign, I think it's on the last page, is the billboard sign. Correct, that one right there. It is actually shown at 6 foot instead of 10 foot. Maybe it's the first to last page in that package there.
Yeah, that's the last.
But maybe John, you might have been one short.
That's all right, I'll get it from
Here,
There you go.
I already saw this.
there. Okay,
You got it?
thank you.
I do have one more.
That's fine.
Somebody-
No, I'm good, I already saw it.
Good.
So that covers the issue in regards to the height of the freestanding sign.
John, will you just
Actually,
give me
yeah.
Bess? Yeah, that was in here.
The next item was the parking light poles. Originally, we had them at 27 foot 8 inches. And as John stated out, with the height of the building at 20 foot, we actually have 20 foot 8. We've reduced the height of the pole to the 20 foot 8 maximum height to cover that issue in regards to lighting. And that actually will help with the intensities and light on the site. It'll actually bring those lights down, which will actually compact the lights more so it doesn't affect the neighboring properties more than what's currently out there. The next item is the bike rack. We're looking at installing a bike rack with 3 loops in the northwest corner of the building, which is located in this location here, tucked into the corner of the parking spaces and the striped no parking zone to cover the issue about the parking, the bike rack. And the last item, actually there's a couple items. One is the Grand Traverse County Health Department. We've actually obtained a well permit for a type 2 well system for the proposed advanced auto. There is existing a current well that will be abandoned. It's actually located in the proposed parking area. Hence, we need to actually have that abandoned as part of the new permit process. The new well will be located just next to the dumpster location in the northeast corner of the property. Also, as John stated, we are in the appeal process at the Metro Fire Department, similar to what we had to do for Goodwill. Hence, there's no public water in this location. A fire detection system isn't a permitted use under the current fire code. That is the reason why we need to go through the appeal process to allow a fire detection or alarm system within the building to notify at the earliest possibility of smoke and heat. That would actually send an alarm to the fire station to give them as quick of a response to the building in case of an emergency of a fire situation at that building. And one of the things that John called out in his parking was the location of an uploading and unloading area for the drop-offs. We have shown the loading and unloading area just to the north of the building, next to the unloading area where the vehicles would be coming in. Truck traffic would come in from the north, come in, back the vehicle in for the unloading area in the northeast corner of the building. We did have a chance to briefly look at the stormwater review that was done by Gosling Zubek for the township. They are asking for a couple soil borings in the proposed basin area to determine depth of water to groundwater so that we can actually meet those standards of the current code. Those will be, I was hoping to get those done today and just ran out of time, but I will have those by the end of this week, and I will get that information back to Nikki so she can pass it on to Gosling for a review and approval for the stormwater conditions. That kind of covers our project and proposal based on the review by Beckett and Rader. We feel that everything's been covered, and we are here if there's any questions that need to be answered.
Anybody?
Is there an issue with the size of the building on the street, the frontage? I'm looking at this chart. It says that building front is percentage of lot width, 85%. And over on the right, everything else seems to be yes. Well, most everything says yes, but that one says no.
It doesn't exceed it. That's the maximum
That's
you
the
can
maximum.
have. So they're, actually, you know, I think this is a good example. Advanced Auto is a national franchise, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a great example. I mean, we had Speedway in here and they said they couldn't do form-based code. And these guys are doing it.
Are you with Advanced Auto?
No, developer.
He's a developer.
Oh,
So, I mean,
Murray?
Yes.
yeah, so they did a nice job at following the requirements in the ordinance.
One other thing we did, upgrade the landscaping plan. I think John called out in regards to the street trees. We were required one canopy tree for every 24 lineal feet of frontage, along with 5 small shrubs. Our original submittal was just the canopy trees. So we have added some additional small shrubs along that M72 right of way to account for the additional landscaping that's required
And
by
I have to
the
review
code.
those and we'll make sure that they're not invasive.
Where are you putting the bike loops?
The bike loops are going to be located right
Back here.
in this northeast, the no parking striped area.
Okay. Because, just logistically, you'd have someone bike in and then like bike right in front of the store where everyone's walking, if they were biking on the sidewalk?
More than likely, they're going to bike along the easement or the drive lane and bring the bike in over here and park.
Okay,
I mean, that would be the typical path. They wouldn't be going down the sidewalk in front of the building.
I just didn't know if like little bike loops right down here would be better, like down by the corner of the building. Just saying, instead of having them floating out where like the no parking zone is. I'm just asking questions.
Sure.
That's it. I have one more question though.
Sure.
Timeline. I think it says somewhere December of this year to like August of next year. I'm just wondering how that works, because it's starting to snow. And so what's the actual realistic timeline of, we're sensitive right now to disturbed soils and rain. And if you go in, I mean, that site's like a lot of asphalt right now, and I'm assuming you have to rip all that up and lay new stuff, and you can't do that till May. So if you start building, just hear me out on this, in like, let's say March or February, and it's a mud pit for a while, I don't know if we should be extra sensitive to that right now. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, the existing site does have existing stormwater control measures in place. The basin in the front is actually existing. We will be reshaping that existing stormwater basin as part of this project. You can see by from the existing conditions plan that we do have stormwater out front, and actually there's an existing stormwater area out on the north side also. So as part of the demolition and excavation and removal of that, we do have some existing stormwater control measures in place that keep that runoff on site. Yes, will it need to be maintained? Yes, it will need to be cleaned and monitored as part of the overall construction of the project. And then once we get closer to the end, then the additional stormwater control areas will be resized and reshaped to come in compliance with our approved plan and our soil erosion sedimentation control permit. So it is self-contained, which is nice. Everything's going to those basins. It's not going to leave the site because everything's graded, and it will be graded to those low areas that are currently existing on the site.
Cool.
Question. Is the only access to this site for your delivery trucks gonna be off this little back street that's over here?
They will enter from the back street, and they will exit out onto 72.
Okay, is that back street, that's not a state grade highway, is that a county road grade?
Yes.
Of,
Yeah, it's a county road.
are there gonna be issues there with frost laws, frost restrictions, access, snow removal to get around the corners and that to get in there? Just asking that question, you know?
It's a good question. We can run that by the county road commission.
There isn't a straight shot through this street, is there, from?
Yes.
Right next.
Yeah, right next door.
Is
This
that
is the
line
access.
right up out to 31?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would go straight through there, okay. Okay, but it just seems like, you know, I mean, it's not a lot of traffic, but I'm just saying, you know, for a tractor trailer to get in there and get around there, anybody's seen what happens over at Ace Hardware. You know, and then you have to spring the frost restrictions. I don't know if you have a zealot waymaster, if he decides to sit out here, then you might have that situation too, for what it's worth.
That's a good comment. We'll check up on it.
I feel like I'm the only one with questions. Max, do you have any questions?
I can't think of any. I think they were answered.
Mr. Marsh?
We don't have any say in the building aesthetics, do we?
I don't know, but I think this red background on the sign went away. Is that correct? Yes, he's nodding. Thank you.
Yes.
The background on, it looks like this now. So it's not all red with the yellow.
Mhm.
It does not look like that. It looks like this. Correct?
So don't look at this one. I'll turn
This
it
is
around.
what not to do.
This is what not.
Well, that's our standard look.
No. But that is correct.
Okay. Is that what you were getting at? What else?
No, just, seems like, yeah, it's just, seems like it'd be dressed up a little bit. I don't have any other questions, because they're pretty much answered.
So the elevation from the road will just be well, it's not concrete, it's block, whatever that is. So that's just like a tan box on the
No.
roadside.
Well, it'll be the south elevation on,
The south,
you can look at the south elevation, so it'll be glass.
it says right, I'm confused.
This one right here.
This is west and that's
This is
south.
all the glass, right? Because we have with the form-based code.
This
we
is
have-
it.
Correct.
This is what you're gonna see on the
So
road.
this is the road.
Yeah,
Correct.
Does that make it better?
the sign helps, but still. It's just a box with some
Proud over
glass in
here.
it.
Yeah, that's, so is that the main entrance?
Correct. That would be the west. The one above that,
The one above
Front
it?
elevation
that would
is,
be the west elevation facing the parking stalls.
right, okay. This is a strange one. John, do you like, or it's really, I guess, maybe it's more of a question for you, Phil, but with this is like all open from here to here along this little road. You don't like enter, I'm guessing it's because you can't enter it
It's a
for.
shared drive.
It's a shared
Sure.
drive.
So it's like, it's just a driveway,
It's a
doesn't it go
drive.
through though?
Yes, it does.
But it's shared by the property on the other side. They use angle park.
Oh, and it's just right there.
See, it's right here.
Okay.
It's a shared, it's a
I'm
shared,
just asking, because usually we make people have little tiny
like islands.
entrances.
Yeah, no,
And
it's,
things are more like pinched off, but
it's a
this is
shared
like
parking lot.
just all open.
It's a shared drive between the two properties.
Okay. Got it. Marcy?
I don't have any questions.
I'm good.
Can I have another go at it?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Will there be any service work done at this facility? I mean, I know some auto parts stores are getting into, you know, you buy a battery here, we'll install it for you. You buy your windshield wipers, we'll install it for you. You buy 5 quarts of oil, we'll install it for you. Are we gonna see service work done in the parking lot? Is that
The batteries,
in the foreseeable future?
the batteries and the wiper blades, they do try to accommodate the customers on that, but I don't know of any store that's changing oil. And,
No. Kind of like maybe the next step, you know, things can progress, but just curious about, you know, is that,
It's really a do-it-yourself store.
hmm,
And
Right.
the batteries and the wiper blades, pretty much the extent of.
pop the hood up, put a battery in?
Is that in the bay or is that out on the property?
No, that's out in the parking lot, because it's not a service store. There's one national out there who has that as a model, but as a model, then you'd have bays
Right.
to do oil, and more extensive.
Can I ask a question? Does the staff do it? The advanced auto staff go out and change the battery, or the person buying the battery goes out and puts the battery in?
No, it's the staff. If it's done on the lot, it's the staff that goes out to help the person. Most often, people go in they just buy the battery and they leave. It's because for most people, it's very simple to do.
Let me give you an example. One time I bought wiper blades and I put them on my car and I was driving down the freeway and one of them flew off. So now, whenever I buy wiper blades, I have someone put them on for me that's not me. Because I'm apparently underqualified to change wiper blades. It happened. It got really noisy too.
Those are the requests that advance they'll accommodate, just because they don't want someone driving away who just can't see because their wiper blades are.
Yeah. Or like chucking wiper blades at people on the freeway, which is what I was doing. Okay. My other question is water. So we're going with a well here because I'm assuming we don't have any connections in this part for water. Okay. I'm just asking. Because at some point, if there was water there, wouldn't, I don't know.
If it was public
It's up
water,
to Metro.
if it was public water, they'd be using it, yes.
Or sewer, not water.
But it would seem like if there was at some point public water and they could hook up to it, that they would want to do that.
Correct,
And that then they could have fire suppression.
that's right.
But installing it after the fact seems like a really big pain in the hiney. And there's no way we would be able to get them to do it.
That's
I wasn't here for the Goodwill approval, so
Yeah,
this is new to me.
that's a decision that's part of the appeal process with Metro Fire.
Okay. So it's not up to us. All right.
Carly,
No.
I had a couple of comments. And
Yes.
I don't know, I just wanted to bring this up, I don't know if this is what Steve was alluding to. But the building to me is awfully plain. I know they've done some better looking stores in different places. And we were talking about the front facade on 72 and not having wall packs. But what if we were to change out those wall packs and have them be a decorative lighting, like a downward facing gooseneck lamp? Something that would
I don't
look a
know.
little bit better instead of the wall packs.
You may be surprised by the look of that wall pack. We used it in other stores. If you've seen some of the stores with the lighting that's just cast down, it gives a really nice aesthetic look at night. If you were to see it, it's not a loud light. It's quite subtle.
It's like a wash.
You may find the aesthetic is pleasing to the eye rather than something that's loud and advertising, it's not like a Las Vegas Strip type of,
It's not
advertising. They're really, those lights are, I think if you looked at, I don't know, the photometrics or something, it's a fairly modest light.
There's two of them on
I'm
the
just
roadside,
thinking-
right? And two.
You know, TSC, you didn't allow that, but yet they had the gooseneck lamps and you allowed those on the wall.
It's not just the photometrics of how it lights, but it's also the look of the fixture itself.
Right.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of compliments in Petoskey with the light, with the look of the store with those
Do you have any pictures of that
lights.
store?
Except this store has more,
I'll take pictures.
At night?
Yeah.
Drive by tonight, John, on your way home.
I will, I'll be up there, I'll take
That's right.
pictures of it.
Thanks, man. That's service.
this store has many more windows than probably any store
These
that
are the
that
fakey.
we've done. We've done quite a few in Michigan. I would say that yours has the most windows so far.
We
So
like
you-
to have
you
the
have
most
that-
windows.
If you want to set a record, I think
Are
you
these,
set a record
real
on the
windows
windows.
or fakey windows?
Those are real windows.
You actually see through them?
No, I believe those are fogged.
These?
Yeah, and I'm not sure you would want to see through them with
Oh,
all
no.
the merchandise in the clip.
I-
But those are fogged, but they're still, those are not.
Okay.
The
Is that like
the
what's
south
that?
is, but the
Is he-
west isn't.
Yeah, the
Let's
Tractor
see.
Supply has the spandrel windows. They're windows, but
Do you
can't-
ever do
can't
anything
see through.
dimensional? Just like slap another row of brick out in some part to make it break up a little bit of flat wall? I'm just asking. You can say no, you can, I'm
Yeah,
not
those-
trying to be
actually,
mean.
Get back to you on the store, the wall pack.
I'm just trying. Marcy,
Those are the wall packs. That would be what you would see. As you can see, the size isn't.
do we have this picture?
I think
think
it was
we might
part of the
have this.
original submittal.
Okay,
So they're
Nikki,
not
what-
obtrusive fixtures that are gonna be,
There's somewhere in here. ahead, Nikki. Did you, I
That's
think you
all.
said a couple of comments.
Our concern is to the extent that you may even see the building with the, you know, what you have out front with all the landscaping, and the elevation with the berm there. So a big concern if they answer, you're gonna say, our concern is
Visibility.
is visibility of the store. One, there's just an enormous setback from the road itself. It's like 20 foot of green space.
Right.
And then there's the combination of that berm, and then you have landscaping. So a big concern is just customers noticing that they're there. And I'm wondering how much of the front is actually gonna be visible once you have the trees and the shrubs.
Because that's a huge right of way,
It's
right?
enormous.
Yeah, you have to step way back because that right of way.
It doesn't start to really shorten until you get a little further west here. But at that point, I think it comes in at like an angle, that right of way. So it's extremely wide at the corner.
Oh, and then it gets smaller, like
And then
right
it
at the
starts to
side.
taper in
or
as you
where-
get closer towards the intersection here.
Yeah.
Yeah, these wall packs are only 4 inches deep, which is from the wall to the face of the fixtures, only 4 inches. And that was actually part of this cut sheet that was provided, was the D-Series size 1. But yeah, the depth from the wall to the face of the fixture is only 4 inches. And they are 13 3/4 inches wide.
Mhm.
So this by that is all that's actually protruding out from the building.
I think Nikki's not concerned about size. She's saying like, TSC, they always put those galvanized barn lights on the front of their stores.
Well, they sell farming equipment.
Right.
I mean,
It's a
it's more of a,
gooseneck
correct.
So, I think she's saying if we had like some
Dress it up.
Well, let me
decorative
take
lighting
a
here.
couple of photos of the one in Tosca. You guys just opened that up a month or so ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it's relatively new. So let me take some pictures, and that way we can email them out and we can take a look at it.
The other, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it out loud because then people will judge me. I was gonna say, the trees in the front, there's no other lots over there that have trees in front of them. It's gonna be like, you're gonna have grass and then like this site is gonna be like landscape to the max. I'm just wondering if you couldn't do lower elevation landscaping.
I've got a note here, because we just got the landscape revised plan. I gotta we have to review the landscaping plan, and I'm looking at it.
Because I mean, that's
We may
what,
make some
six
modifications to it.
Norway, aren't the big trees Norway maples?
Yeah, Norway Comler maples is what we were proposing.
Yeah, and then,
And then like a low-level burning bush of some sort for the low level.
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's nice, but I'm just saying,
No, we'll take a look at it.
in terms of not seeing the store or elevations or all that other jazz. Form-based code, we're trying to narrow sight lines on roads so people slow down and realize that we're not just, as the correspondence today said, a pass-through city or whatever we were referring to. Okay,
That was our concern. We almost thought that was MDOT's proposal, just to keep traffic moving.
we're trying to slow it down, you should like us.
That's right.
We're trying.
Dress up your building so it's the best looking one on the strip.
The 60 mile per hour thing is really not what we're going for. All right,
No.
do you guys have something cooking over there? So I think we're about ready to let you go. So you know what you have to do? We don't, do you have any more
That
questions?
is.
Well, it's mainly.
Well, we
what
just have to get the last stuff into
It's-
John and then
They've
come
got,
back.
what they have to do is, they have to do the soil borings to determine depth of groundwater and meet some of the review comments
And it
that
sounds
Gosden
like
has.
we could get that done
3 inches.
and have something by the next meeting.
Yeah,
That
and
would
then
be,
Oh, no question.
we have a few other things that we have to
Votable.
follow up on, road commission stuff. They got us,
go back over the landscape stuff.
yeah, we have to see something from the county relative to soil erosion yet. So there's a few things that are still outstanding. I'll take a look at the lights in Petoskey, send you guys a photo, let you guys see what they looks like.
And are the lights are all the way around? Or are they just on the 3 sides?
Be just the 3 sides. I wouldn't anticipate them being on
The back side?
the back side unless,
No.
is there emergency access on the back side?
North, south, and west side?
Yeah, north, south, and west.
Because they're,
Yeah, I don't think they wouldn't put those in the back side.
they're not in the back.
They're-
Correct. The back is actually where they
It
have
would be the
the,
east elevation, yeah, so there's no lights on the east elevation. This is the north, which is a light over the top of the loading door. This would be along the front side. Yeah, so that would be the only, yeah, the east side would be, the back side facing the east is, yeah, no
and
lights
their
on the
parking lot lights are in the back.
Is there any outdoor storage with Advanced Auto? Do they like stack
No.
ice melt and stuff outside?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen any of the stuff that we've done.
Honestly, I can't keep them all straight. There's like Advanced Auto,
And AutoZone.
AutoZone, Trilby Auto. There's a lot of, yeah, AutoWorks. Anyway,
Have you had any conversation with the adjoining property owners about the construction process?
Yes,
You know, where you've got the shared drive and
yes,
parking, so they know what to expect in terms of the
Yes.
construction process? Okay, thank you.
if you had an approval in December, when would the store be complete?
our goal is to have that complete by August 20th,
When would you start?
March 1st.
Okay. Anything else? Going once?
I agree with you, Carly and John both. I think we ought to take a look at that. All that vegetation in front of the store. I agree with that. If we can't see the store,
Yeah, we'll take a look at
It
it.
could also just be really strange because like your neighbor right there would be like just grass. You guys would look like a resort. Like, what's back there?
Oasis.
I don't know. That might be the wrong thinking, because if the guy next to you ends up tearing that down, then he can be like, well, now I don't have to have any landscape, because they didn't have to have any landscape, and then we don't get any landscaping. Are you guys sick of landscaping? All right. All right. Any questions for us? We're good?
Nope, we'll just coordinate with Nikki and John, and we'll be back to with everything next month.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Native plantings, ordinance,
Can I have a couple questions, Carl?
yes.
I didn't have a chance to look at the map to see how close the store was to Acme Creek. I don't actually think it's very close, is it?
This store,
Yeah.
it's right here.
Yeah.
It's like literally,
In our backyard.
I could almost throw a stone to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the creek's not that far away, but I think it is, there's a significant separation there in this case. Are there any stormwater sewers on that site or near that site?
Sewers?
Storm
No.
sewers?
There are a couple existing catch basins now, but those will be eliminated and be directly into the retention basin areas.
Okay. Do we have an ordinance in our township on car work at auto parts type stores in the parking lot?
It's like a use, an actual auto repair facility. I believe in this zone is not, I'm going off the top of my
It's
head.
not.
It's called car repair and maintenance or,
Auto supply stores are permitted use, but
because
not-
they're retail. But like a place where you're draining oil out of cars and like a Pennzoil thing is different.
I know that some communities, you go to auto parts stores and they have signs in the parking lot that says, local ordinance, you can't do work on cars because, you know, like it or not, some people, sometimes they'll have their car will break down and they've lived to the place and they're working on their car in the parking lot. And sometimes it's the wiper replacement, which obviously is no big deal or anything. And, you know, sort of related to that is, you know, I assume you're gonna have trash cans out there, so when people put their wiper blades in, they're gonna have a place to throw their wiper trash and stuff.
And they usually take that from the customers, they come, and they take it and dispose of that too, so they're very clean about it. That's why they like to do the wipers themselves, because they take all the trash out, you know, where others, they'll throw it out by the car or something, so. They're very strict about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Did you say thank you?
I did, yes.
Oh, I couldn't hear you. I thought you were gonna keep going. sorry. So yeah, we do have an ordinance on that. You're good, we're good. Thank you for coming tonight.
You bet.
Native plantings ordinance amendment draft. Oh. Are we just talking about this in J? Is that when we're getting to this?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, Nikki sent me over your comments from the last meeting, and I put them in the ordinance. The easiest way to really develop this, instead of developing a whole native plant ordinance like some communities do that list all the species and what you can't plant, what you can plant, I simply set the ordinance up to review the recommended planting guidelines for municipalities that's published by the Northwest Michigan Invasive Species Network, as periodically revised, constitutes what a native species is from an invasive, and it just says that only native species listed under the recommended plants for ornamental landscapes would be used as plant materials for any type of landscaping when applying for a land use permit. So we reference the guidelines, okay, in the ordinance. So when that brochure's updated, we don't have to review, we don't have to update the ordinance because it's already specified. I talked to the folks over at the Grand Traverse County Conservation District, and that's what they recommended. They said if you're gonna, I talked about Steve's comment about making sure that they were indigenous plant materials, and they said if you use this guideline, these are the plant materials they recommend for Northwest Michigan for this area. So I felt pretty comfortable just using it because it wouldn't require the township to change the ordinance every time a plant goes on or off the list. So, then it says invasive species are the plants that are noted in the guidelines. So those are the ones that we would look at when we review a landscaping plan to make sure that they're not on the landscaping plan. So from now on, when we do a site plan review, we'll have a comment in there. Does it meet the native plant materials? And we'll have yes or no. And if it's obviously no, then they'll have to go back and they'll have to modify the plant material selection based on the guidelines. So I think it'll be pretty easy to administer for projects that come before the planning commission for site plan review.
And they won't miss it where it's located.
No,
Here,
they won't
right.
miss it where it's located because it's right in the landscaping section of the ordinance. And then everything else, the other part, the reason why I did it is because the ordinance specifies the caliper of the trees and the size of the shrubs, and they refer back to the American Standard for Nursery Stock Code, which I looked up and is still current, and that's how to plant the materials. So this is all, so if somebody goes to the landscaping, it's all there. There's no other provisions. It's pretty tight. So my recommendation to the board is if you want to move it forward, schedule a public hearing for your December meeting, and after we have a public hearing, we could send it to the county for their review and comment.
Okay. I'm glad we put class 1 and class 2 in there, because that other class had like some things that are just everywhere.
Class 1, class 2.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or comments over the the newly revised, again, landscaping stuff, ordinance?
Pretty straightforward.
Wow. All right. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to set a public hearing for our December meeting for this revision.
I'll make that motion. Support.
Any discussion? All in favor of setting a public hearing for the native plants ordinance amendment draft for the December Planning Commission meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Jim, I'm assuming because you didn't say anything, you're okay with this?
I'm very pleased with the way
Okay.
things are proceeding.
Good.
The intent was to promote the use of native plants and discourage the use of invasive plant materials. Right there.
Intent is really nice because it's like an umbrella. You can get a lot of stuff in there. Okay, so then we're on to the end of this business. Nikki, do you have an update?
I don't really have anything to update you on. We still are, regularly getting inquiries into commercial properties. Couple things, but nothing really has come to an official submission, so I don't really have anything for you.
John?
Yes, I have a couple things.
I would prefer to, if you gave us an update on Redwood and what you think is gonna happen with that.
Redwood is in the process of finalizing their site plan, and it'll probably be back before the planning commission, I would say. If it's not December, it'll be January. It's not that they are not doing the project, they had some issues to resolve relative to site plan, a couple things they needed to, that we pointed out to them they needed to clarify. The township board, based on your planning commission's recommendation, approved the amendment regarding the architectural design of the project, and they also approved the reallocation of the land uses. Basically removing more retail from the site and putting in more residential. So the board of trustees went ahead, approved your recommendation on that, and based on that, that's where we're at with Redwood right now.
Okay.
They're just finalizing their site plan.
And while you're mentioning that, we could mention
Yes,
this
and
letter.
then the letter that you have before you this evening from the chair is a result of the conversation that we had at the meeting where the planning commission reviewed the minor amendments for Redwood. There was the discussion that was, we really need to start working with the developers on the VGT, GTT site relative to showing on the conceptual overall plan all the different modifications that have been made. So this is official correspondence from the chair to Steve Schooler, who is the agent for the Village of Grand Traverse LLC, asking them to, work with the planning commission on revising the overall conceptual plan. So that's the formal communication. My suggestion is, it would be nice if since we talked about it at the planning commission, now that we have the official correspondences, maybe a motion from the board directing the chairperson to sign the letter and send it over to Steve as official correspondence from the planning commission. That would be my recommendation.
Would anybody feel so moved?
I would make a motion to support Carly's letter and send it to, do we send it to the VGT?
Steve, Mr. Schooler.
To Mr. Schooler?
He's the agent, yeah.
Okay.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll support.
Rosa? Okay, any discussion? All in favor of us corresponding with Mr. Schooler, the letter presented to you, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Any other updates, Sean?
Yeah, Trey's not here, but the township was awarded an award by the Grand Traverse County Planning Commission during their annual awards dinner for the Acme Township placemaking plan. So congratulations.
I'll bring it next time and show everybody, tell you about
I
it.
think it was for the form-based code. So it makes me- Okay. Yay!
Good job. That's all I have.
Anybody else have anything? We'll open it up for public comment at 8:13. Yes?
Brian Kelly, I wanted to respond to a couple things John mentioned earlier. largely had to do with county inspections and the suggestion that there's been a lot of inspections on the site. On October 14th, we had a fairly good rain, and I emailed county about an inspection, and they didn't come out until October 16th. And there was a significant delay there. DEQ was out on the 15th and found a violation. I don't believe there were really any meaningful county inspections in August or September. Even as you may have read about this in the Record Eagle, I think Bruce Ramey said, you know, you'd have to walk the whole creek to inspect the site, and I don't know why he was unwilling to do that, but I think in September the site was simply not inspected, and what we actually had were some denials from officials about what was actually happening out there, and it was Steve Stinson, who went out to the site on the 22nd and documented the discharge there, took videos and photos. And if not for his efforts, we might have had a few more weeks of denials. So it was
22nd of
September. So anyway, on those inspection reports, there have been some things that have been noted in there for a long period of time that still haven't been taken care of. So there, I can't say that everything's been jumped on. I can't say there has been a great deal of work done on the site to try and fix things out there, but as has been said before by the experts on this, once it gets to this situation, it's extremely difficult to fix the site. You know, we're getting into the point where the ground will freeze, and I think that'll be a good thing, but then we're going to have this huge spring melt, and you know, it's going to be a real concern. John, you mentioned the county found them in violation, and unless my information is incorrect, that was merely a citation, not an actual violation.
Citation
I'm
violation.
pretty
There's
sure
a-
that's the same thing.
No, I think it's a little bit different. That's my source is mistaken. I have a pretty good source on that.
Okay,
One is like a traffic ticket, the other is, you know, something far more serious.
okay.
I think also someone asked about bonds and things like that, and again, if my information is not correct, I think there's something like with the county, there's a $178,000 surety, and that is based on the acreage of the site, so that we have an acreage of a certain site, you have to put a surety down in the county, and that surety is in place in case something happens, and you need to bring in a third-party engineering firm to oversee or do monitoring or things like that. And so when you get a violation, you have the opportunity to draw from that surety to pay a third party to come in and give us some candid, neutral feedback on what's being taken on the site, actions, best practices, all that stuff. Thank you.
Any other business? Yes, Jim.
One of the things I heard tonight was that the business Advanced Auto Parts was going to need to get an appeal for their water and fire suppression. It seems like if we're encouraging this commercial corridor, village of Grand Traverse, that we should have public water for these sites, that they shouldn't have to go through these hoops. I mean, if we're going to be a welcoming community to businesses, public water is part of it.
We totally agree with you.
I don't know what the process is.
We're waiting on it.
The township board is working on it.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to put in a water tower and put in the water system. And then we'd have to man the water system and everything. The township's working on the cost and such, and working with the tribe on it to some extent.
I mean, I see some water towers at the, resort and at the
That's right.
casino, and East Bay Township has one, right? I think we're trying to prime Acme for this development, and to do it right, we need to have public water.
We have multiple times identified that as a key hurdle to getting any kind of sound commercial development going, because it's not here. I mean, isn't it the Sleep Inn, they have a cistern on the second story for fire suppression, because, yeah, that was the only way to suppress the residential hotels, whatever you call it.
The tribe has approached the township almost 10 years ago to sell bulk water to the township. We were turned down. Same with Whitewater, we were turned down. So then the tribe started selling individually to different developers and private entities. So that was different leadership at that time. So I don't know what the new leadership, what their train of thought is for that. So hopefully our thought is
Hopefully it's mutually beneficial, I mean, for everybody, for the tribe and for the community.
we recognize your concerns and fully support your comments.
And I will say that it's probably referenced in the community master plan a half a dozen times.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot this year with the master plan, with the form-based code. You know, we're encouraging growth with multi-story buildings, but we don't have any way to suppress the fire in them. So it's, I don't know.
It's a major development hurdle.
If you build it, they will come, but we just haven't built that yet.
Yep. So.
Okay, anything else? Yes.
I just wanted to hand this letter in to be added to the minutes.
Okay.
And
I'll give this to.
And just a moment for clarification on stormwater management plan review procedures. I was looking through the watershed stormwater plan, and there were different ideas as to stormwater plan review procedures. And they talked about, and I know you had just said that we had no recourse with the action that had just happened here in the stormwater problem with BGT. But if in the future, there is a way of putting some type of teeth into a stormwater management plan through the township, you can gain teeth in other ways. And one of the ways is a letter of credit or post a cash amount of a certain percentage of the cost of the stormwater management facility for projects, maybe with a minimum and a maximum. But anyway, the deposit would be held for the duration until it could be returned or used for necessary repair, like I know Brian was seeing that. If there was a certain amount that needed to go to a third-party engineer who had to be called in for it, then that would be used towards payment of that. Just clarification there.
Yeah.
Because right now we
You
have.
may.
We have no.
You know, when the township.
This is for future.
When the township reviews their stormwater management ordinance, they can take a look at that. But the issue here is when you ask for surety bonds and performance bonds, those are under the assumption that the applicant or the developer has basically walked off the site or is not doing any type of remediation. In this case, even Dr. Grobel will tell you, and I know that some of the members of the community, because Chris says he gets calls all the time, Dr. Grobel will tell you that they're doing everything that they possibly can in order to stop any stormwater with any sediment going into Acme Creek. He'll say they're using every available technology that he knows of to do what they're doing, with the exception that the issue here is that because the soils were basically unstabilized because of all of the grading that went on, is the key factor here is that there's no grass cover, which is critical, and that's why they've got mats down and they've hydro-seeded and they've done all kinds of.
They were looking at turping, they were looking at
Yes.
gorilla
But
snot.
even Dr. Grobel will say
I learned
that the
a word.
redundancy on this thing is incredible. I mean, there's not only one silt fence, in some areas there are 6 and 7 rows of silt fencing and all kinds of other technologies that they've used. In fact, they've even brought onto the site last week a mobile treatment facility, which is very costly and very rarely used.
You know, if that's what it
Okay,
takes,
but-
amen.
But the issue here is that a surety bond in a typical case would not even cover anywhere near the expenses that the developer has put on this site since the middle of September relative to trying to manage the conditions out there. So if we would have had a $100,000 surety bond, that's nothing compared to what they've spent out there to try to remediate the condition that's happened out there. So that's why this is such I'm trying to maintain a balance between the community, the township, and the review agencies, is that everybody is trying to work proactively to solve a problem that we all recognize. and do it in such a way that it doesn't impair the creek any more than what it currently has. But I will say that all of the agencies have been out there inspecting, and the developer has done what they have. The developer has done, I think, a phenomenal job of responding to all of the various parties and all of their various concerns. Because they're not just responding to DEQ, they respond to what the county asked them to do, they're responding to what Dr. Grobel has asked them to do, they're responding to what Gosling Zubek has found and is asking them to do. So they're responding to all the parties that I'm aware of, because the Township Board asked me to stay on top of it, and I'm telling you, I get phone calls daily from all of the different agencies and all the different parties of what's going on out there. And it is a phenomenal work effort that's gone on to date. So, yes, is there some sediment periodically going into the creek? Yeah. Is it because they're not trying to stop it? No, that's not the case at all. I mean, the technologies that are being employed out there and the amount of money that's being put out there is incredible. And that comes from our consultants who walk the site weekly. So, I got Gosling Zubek out there, and I got Dr. Grobel, and everybody in the community has a lot of respect for Chris. And he's out there, and he files his report every week, or sometimes twice a week, depending on what's going on the site. So.
One quick comment, based on my observation, I have to disagree with you about the grass. There are flocks of geese in there pulling out the grass every day I drive by there. So there's grass growing.
Yeah, yeah.
Steve?
Yeah,
Oh,
there
there's two
is
Steves
some
going
grass
on.
growing, because we're hiding the seeds, and doing a lot of, did everything we could do. John and I articulated very well why we had to open up that much land. It has cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars because we had to open up that much land. Now, some people could care less about that. I know everyone sitting here wish we didn't have to do that, but we do, because we're trying to do everything possible. The machine that John mentioned costs over $100,000 a month to filter water. And we'll be doing that at least twice. So, like John said, it's been very expensive. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to date. Thank you.
Steve also has a comment.
Just like in the future, Rochelle mentioned about, the surety bonding as for future development as a precaution. There's issues with that too. If there is an issue with a development and construction, you have to go after the surety bonding or any type of bonding. It can be a nightmare, it can be long-term. Even if you are correct and you deserve to collect the bonding, you may have to go to court to actually get the bonding to pay judgment on that. So that is not always an effective measure for that. It could be a nightmare.
Now, we've been involved with trying to get contractors, get their surety bonds on behalf of municipalities. It can take a long time. And during that period of time, depending on the condition or the problem can exacerbate significantly, because at that point, no one's working to solve the problem. Exactly. I think here is, I didn't start working on this in 2002 when this all started, so I don't carry a lot of the institutional history, but I can tell you, based on 30 years of working in public sector on a variety of different development projects, the developers here have been very responsive and responsible of solving this problem. I mean, I don't need to know how much money they've spent. I can see, based on the pictures that we have historically now, of all the money that's gone into various technologies out there, plus Steve just told you with the mobile treatment facilities. I've only seen that used one other time. It's extremely rare to use that type of technology. But we have a responsive developer that is trying to work with the community on solving the problem. And I just want to keep it that way. They've been very good to work with. They've done everything that we've asked. And I just want to keep this proactive partnership moving in that direction, because that's what's going to benefit the water quality of the creek. And that's going to benefit the community. So.
They've also been very transparent with the township.
Yep, and we've been transparent with the community and posting everything online. Good or bad.
Yes,
it's
Brian.
online.
The Lock and Heath Golf Course had an $80,000 surety on their property, and they, I don't know the particular circumstances, but I believe they exposed too much soil. They had huge dust erosion occurring out there. County took their surety, all $80,000 of it, and then remediated the site. And so that is a local example there. And the Acme Stormwater Ordinance also mentions surety, and if there isn't sufficient money in a surety, if there's imminent harm, they can put a lien on the property to cover the expense of going in and taking action there, so.
But Brian, but all due respect to the chair, I just have to ask the question. When you're working with a developer who's responsive, why do we feel that we need to penalize them? I mean, we have a developer that is being responsive, that is writing checks left and right to do what is right and what's being required.
That's a fair question, John.
But why do we feel that we also need to penalize somebody?
It's not about penalties per se. It's, my opinion is that in June, July, and August, there's planting should have been done on the site. The site slope should have been graded and planted at that time. And I feel that my impression is from the activity I've seen on the site is a lot of the site grading was delayed. The topsoil was removed, and then the site was left exposed. The grading was not completed. That was delayed. The site should have been either graded at that time or covered at that time with plantings. And the whole key here was to not get in this situation now.
Well,
Okay.
let me just, one more thing. It's great, you know, we can all be Monday or Tuesday morning quarterback, but here's the issue. If you take a look at, you go back and you take a look at the time frame that this summer is, they wanted to get started. They told the township they wanted to get started in April when the frost laws were lifted. We had too much snow. We had too much melt. We knew going into the project, because they did 30-some soil borings, we knew that this was clay. When they started stripping it, what did we have this summer? We had a very wet summer. So every time it rained, they had to wait days, if not weeks, before they could get back in and start doing the work again. So this has been a project that's not only been complicated by its size, but it's been complicated climatically by the weather and by the soil conditions, which we all knew going in that we were going to be faced with a clay substrate, because that was documented as part of the environmental review. So we knew it going in, we were going to have these problems.
And it was up to the engineer and the developer to manage those risks and those
They
challenges.
did, and they were approved by all the review agencies. They were given their permit by DEQ, and they were given their permit by the county soil erosion, which they went through. They were required by this commission to get those permits before they approved their SUP, and they went through and they got their permits reviewed and approved. But
If I might just bring it back,
please.
I'm just gonna make the comment that I don't think that we should assume to know what happened on the site if we are not the people who are out there. I am not qualified to site grade a 180 acre site, or what do you have? There's 80 acres, it's like turbid right now. I can't even pretend to know the magnitude of a project like that. I'm remodeling my house and it's insane. So like doing that big of a project seems crazy. So to say that we sat there and saw piles of dirt that were there, they could have had to be there because they were putting stuff in over here. We don't know the answer to that. So let's just say that right now, our two things that we can do is in the future, we can review the stormwater ordinance and look at other options to make sure that we're ensuring that this doesn't happen again. Because we can all agree we don't want to see runoff like this in Acme Creek. That's one. Number two, right now they are working with us. We want them to continue working with us. And so I agree with John and I that their penalty is being paid right now in the technology and the equipment that's out there, and we need them to focus on that, not focus on they're just having to shell out cash for no reason. Where does that money go? That money would go into technology that's preventing the runoff from happening, which it is right now. They're penalizing themselves. So before we get all angry, which everyone's getting so angry with us, we're addressing the issue and trying to get it right, and I've made it fairly clear that we can't really do anything further on that site until we figure this out. So we're figuring it out. And I don't often respond, and Steve, just take a chill pill. I think that we can beat this to death
I
all
can
night.
answer the question.
And every week and every month.
I can answer the question.
Okay. And then we're
His
done.
question about this seating, all that seating should have been done and stuff, is not possible when you have 30 pieces of equipment balancing a site that big. The dirt you can't plant stuff and drive over it with equipment that weighs 10 tons continually. Compacting the dirt. That's how you compact the dirt, so you can build buildings of it.
Okay.
With those big graders.
I think that goes to my point that we don't know how to...
You said it, you said
We don't
it.
know how to
Moving
say
dirt.
we're in a huge
Then what you're
development.
saying is the site could not be developed within the requirements of the law, is what you're saying. So therefore, it was one or the other, sorry.
Okay, I think that there's
No, we had to
there's
do
just
it.
some difference
That's
of
it.
opinions with
I'm done.
semantics right now. Let's bring it back. I think that we've addressed it, the township's addressing it, the developer's addressing it, and we as a commission, what we can do is look at the stormwater ordinance for the future. That's what we can do at this point, because I'm not a regulating body. We can't
Right.
slap fines and penalties. The board is looking at it, and they are. So that's what I can tell you from our point of view is where we can revisit stormwater. We can look at that. You know, we're trying to incorporate low impact design. You know, maybe there's some more teeth, as Rochelle mentioned, that we can look at, but we can't do that tonight. So we appreciate your comments. I hope that everyone can go home and have a nice glass of tea. And I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have support?
Support.
Okay, Rosa, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all